Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Mr. News Art Class. It's wonderful to see your smiling faces today. Today we're talking about markers and how to blend them. And we're going to give a big thank you to a wonderful, wonderful person. Now, if you have a set of markers like this, it ain't going to do much. But if you have a set of markers like these right here, well, you'll find that they can do a lot more than your standard Crayolas. These are alcohol-based markers, which are great for blending, and there's lots of different brands you can get that all do the same thing. Some of them are more expensive, and others are less expensive. But any of them are going to be more expensive than your standard Crayolas. But they need to say alcohol markers in order to be blendable. Now, these right here are from a brand called Firefly, and they were donated to my art classroom by a wonderful human being, my wife's mother, my mother-in-law. And so today we're going to be saying thank you to her for these beautiful markers. Now, in order to blend two colors, the first step is to find two that are similar. Like here I have two pinks. Or like maybe I'll do a dark blue and a dark purple. Or, that purple could even go with a red. Either way. Or it could even go with this dark pink. Whatever. Any colors, any two colors that are close. Like these two different blues. Or a blue and a green. You decide. Just start by picking any two colors that are similar. Now, once you've chosen your two colors, they have two different ends to the same marker. You can see they're notated which side is which. This side has a bullet tip, and this side has a chisel tip. It's just a little bigger for filling in bigger areas. Now, some brands, like the Copic markers, these are the best in my opinion. These have the chisel tip, but they also have a brush tip. This side is squishy, like it's a paintbrush. And that's one of the reasons why people like the Copic markers in particular. These markers don't have that, but that's okay. They'll still do the trick. Let me zoom in here so we can start filling in a color. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with one of our two colors. I usually start with the darker color. And we're going to fill part of the letter in. Here I've just written out thank you in big box letters. I'm going to fill part of that letter in, coloring neatly inside the lines. But I am not going to color the whole thing one color. I'm going to put the cap on that and switch to my second color. And notice that I'm going to layer it right over top. Only there at the edge. And that'll blend those two colors together. I'm going to color the whole rest of the letter with this blue color. But where the two colors meet, I want them to go over top of each other, and that'll blend them together. That makes a nice little gradient, and especially as the ink starts to dry, you'll see those colors really coming together there in the middle. And as I finish that up, I'll go back in there and make sure I get it 100% nice and smooth. The trick with these markers is layers. And there you can see how those blend together. Moving on, I'll do the same thing here with an orange and a yellow. Any two colors will do. I'll color one side of the H with a yellow. And then once I finish filling in this side, I'm going to use both colors in the middle and use the orange on the right. And the inks, even if they dry up, they will wet each other when you color over each other, if that makes sense. So even if the inks dry up, you can still go back and blend them. Now it's easier to blend them while they're still wet like this. You notice if you go with the light color first, it doesn't blend as well. That's why I like to start with the darker color and then blend the lighter color on top of it. It kind of pushes the dark color out of the way. Like that. And here I'm using the dark pink over top of the purple. Now these are different enough colors that it is going to require quite a bit of pushing that ink in. You'll notice that I spend extra time right there along the edge between the two colors, just wiggling that in to help blend that a little extra. And here I'm using the light pink over top of the red. When you have colors that are more similar like these, it doesn't require as much work to get them to blend. They make a real nice buttery smooth blend right there. So why don't you try it? Get yourself some alcohol-based markers. You don't have to go for the expensive Copic brand or Prismacolors or something like that. You can get cheap ones for starters. And just practice blending those colors. And keep in mind that these do act kind of the opposite of many other art supplies. You know, like if you're using regular markers, you can always go over it with a darker color. But in this case, we start with the dark color and go over it with a lighter color. And the inks kind of push each other around. Now, it should be noted that I am using a different kind of paper here. This is cardstock. It's very smooth and absorbent, so there's a lot of ink that gets soaked into the paper, but also it'll bleed through the paper, which means you'll need something underneath to keep your table from getting messy. And there we go. That's all there is to it. Now you give it a try.